founder of Women's Sales Pros, which is a community for women. We help companies grow through creating teams that are inclusive, and we teach sales leaders how to hire and retain and promote more women into sales. I also have two guests with me today. I'm going to be the moderator. I'm so excited. I wanted to introduce first, I'm going to introduce Helen Finucci because I happen to have her book right here. Here it is. It's called Love Your Team, a survival guide for sales managers in a hybrid world. And Helen is also founder of pipelinepower.ai. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yes. And Janice Gordon, my podcast buddy. We've done a few episodes recently. Janice is a customer growth expert, and she's the founder of Scale Your Sales and also a podcast host herself. So welcome, Janice. Good to see you.
Lovely to have my peers and the people that really inspire me. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is great. And if you're watching live, you're welcome to send us questions or comments. We love to see them and share them. This is going to be shown later on. This is, an evergreen conversation that we're having. But in fact, it is the week of International Women's Day. And so I always think this is a time of reflecting and thinking about how far we've come and how far we need to go when it comes to sales. We're all very much involved in sales and revenue growth. So I just thought if we focus on allies and how our male allies can support us, that would make for some good tips and ideas for people listening. If you're a woman in sales, fantastic. You can tell your male managers and leaders about some of these ideas. And if you're a man listening, we appreciate your allyship first and foremost, because we know we can't change anything without the support of the majority, which is men in the sales workplace, if you will. So I thought we'd start just by does anybody have a mentor or ally that comes to mind that you have worked with that has been very supportive to you over the years, or maybe someone that you see in the LinkedIn world that we talk with periodically?
Well, there's one that we both know, Lori, Tom Castley. And all the conversations that I have with him, he is my go-to person when I'm talking about allyship and sales leaders in the sales environment, and how, he has managed to bring on many and attract many women into sales. We know that if you have a female sales leader, they will naturally attract more women into sales. So Tom talks a lot about his daughters and why he's so passionate about it and why it's so important to him. And he lives and breathes it because it is a personal passion of his. So I really always hold him up as the go-to person, and I get a lot of sales leaders, I recommend a lot of sales leaders to talk to Tom. So, I would like to big him up as one of our allies, but also a leading light. And, I'm based in the UK, you're both based in the US. So I wanted to hold him up as a UK example of real allyship in sales.
Yeah, I love that. I know that there's a Women in Sales event coming up, and I think he's involved in it or will be attending. And yeah, big shout out to Tom. He's a really great sales leader. He's in the SaaS world, and we, couldn't be happier to know him. So shout out to Tom. Helen, how about you?
First of all, I'll say I know Tom too. I met Tom at a CSO UK event a few years ago, right before COVID. So in the corporate world, I have a couple examples, and the way that the male allies have shown up for me have been one to promote me. So I've been recognized for the work that I've done, and they've promoted me, but also given me some mentorship and coaching. And one that comes to mind, Max Long, one of the lessons I learned from him is his point of view is, look, feedback is a gift. And, if you don't see it that way, then, we'll stop giving you feedback. And that's actually a red flag. So it really shifted my approach and thought about, constructive feedback and things like that. And of course, over the years, some of the feedback has been, after reflection, I've decided, you know what, that's doesn't fit for me. So you also have to kind of look at it through the lens, because not all male leaders I've had do I trust equally to have my best interests in heart, but Max was one of them. And then also being able to work with leaders and have them see the opportunity for me to move into a different function across the organization. I've had that opportunity in corporate. And again, these are men that I've worked with, and through, building relationships and having the kind of seeing the core skills. I've had folks stand up for me in the kind of meetings where promotions and reviews are discussed, behind closed doors. And so that kind of advocacy when you're not in the room has made a huge difference for me in career. So how do you develop that? Well, develop that by doing a fabulous job, but also building relationships deliberately with male leaders who express an interest or realize that they can only be successful if they are promoting a diverse leadership team. And so, that's gotten more and more prevalent in corporate America, that diversity, there's a recognition that, look, we need to have a diverse team that supports or mirrors the folks that we have the ambition to sell to. And so I think through that recognition that's helped build awareness and the propensity for allyship.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, Lori, that you didn't mention in your introduction, as you're the author of She Sells, and that book also has been an effective tool for me to, because you cite such fantastic statistics of how women in leadership roles and women in sales outperform men in sales. And you have the data to support it. And sometimes that's also been an effective way for me to build more allyship and more awareness, because I do think there's many, many men that want to be supportive, but they don't know how to be. And so beginning that conversation has been super effective.
Yeah, well, thank you. Shout out to the She Sells book. I will take that. That's lovely. I also would mention we have an ally on LinkedIn named Dan Goodman, and I don't know if anyone has known him, but he is an employee advocate, and he shares story after story after story of people that he has helped who had just, they separated from the company, usually not on their own doing, and had really bad situation despite the great productivity, the sales that were generated, the hard work. Sometimes he shared one that I saw today about a woman who was 61 and they thought she was too old and paid too well. And I just really enjoy hearing his stories because he fights for employees and really helps them to figure out how to maximize their severance so that they don't lose too much after giving so much to the company. So shout out to Dan Goodman as well. And there are many more, but I think these are good examples. And my plan through this year with Women's Sales Pros is to shine a light on more male allies and more male leaders who are really focusing on building their teams that are more inclusive and are very successful. So if anybody listening has a story about a male ally, please send them my way, and I would love to see that. So Janice, how can someone be a better ally? Do you have a couple of tips or ideas?
Well, we should also mention our good friend who wrote the book Women in Tech, a book for the guys. So Ava Helen.
Oh
So
yeah.
there are
Right.
excellent strategies in the book, and it's all about allyship and helping women in sales to identify the different personalities and profiles of their male managers so that they can better manage up, but also for the men that are managing women to identify where they're at and how they can grade up as well. So it gives real actionable strategies based on really good research. So from what you said, Helen, in terms of your experience, I'd like to mention mentorship and the difference between mentorship and sponsorship or champion, and really being intentional when you're in an environment where you can identify not only internal but external mentors to help you to grade up to the position where you want to be. So they're mentoring you and helping you to develop the skills you need to move on to the next level or to access a next channel. And then sponsorship is very much about, or the champions, very much the people that are talking you up while you're not in the room. So you've got to be very intentional about where are the gaps that you need to fill and who are the right mentors and support system in order to move where you want to go, but also who is in the rooms that when you're not and how you can get them on board. But I think another thing is actually recognizing when there is an ally in the meeting, in the organization, because allies don't always know that they're allies. They don't recognize it. They may say something, but they don't know at what point had an impact on you that made you feel different. So I think it's really good for us to be intentional about telling allies they were an ally in that meeting when they supported you, what they did, so that they can recognize that behavior and do it again.
Good tip.
So I think that's another area we need to be intentional, recognizing the allies, telling them exactly what they did and the impact it had on you.
Oh, that's really, really good, because you're right. I think that many men were allies before that term became in vogue. And I've had examples where I've been included in conversations intentionally by male allies without necessarily them recognize it. It was like the common sense thing to do, perhaps because it was an area of accountability that I had, and they recognized, oh, Helen should be part of the conversation. And equally, I think it's so important for us as women in the workforce to bring in men to the conversation where it obviously makes sense, and to collaborate more effectively. Because if you have a team with just women, they don't perform as well as a team that have a diverse women and men, a diverse group, or people of color. That's, people with different kinds of thinking. So being intentional about building in teams with diverse thinking. And I think the lever point for this is really folks that are in a position to hire new staff. And whether it's transferring in people from within an organization, a large company, or hiring from the outside. And so, for example, making sure if I'm the chief revenue officer and I'm the senior leader, that the managers under me hiring are looking at a diverse slate of candidates and not accepting the situation like, well, wait a minute, there aren't qualified women, because we all know better and differently, as an example. And so helping connect leaders and managers to the talent pool is one way to encourage and make it happen. And I think many men, in my experience, are very open to it. They just don't know where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, personal thing, it just breaks my heart little pieces when I see a woman leaving the sales profession. And I've seen some women leaving in recent months because they didn't feel comfortable in the environment they were in, which was a male majority environment, which had some amount of bad behavior and what I guess we could call microaggressions of little things, little thing here, little thing there. Finally, some of the women that I know that have left sales said, I'm just tired of it. I'm done. I'm not going to be in that kind of a situation again. What can women do to really thrive in sales? And I know for myself, I thrived in sales. My attitude was, I'm a single parent supporting my family. There's no fail. It's all about thriving, and it's all about just going bigger. So that was my mentality, even at a very young age. And I just wonder, what can we help women who are newer to sales what can we instill in them, or what ideas can we give? And I would say, I'll start it off by saying, one idea I have is that if you want to go into leadership or management, be very clear about it with your, whoever you report to, as soon as you want to. You don't have to wait months to have your performance reflect on what a hard worker you are and how well you do it. This is something that men do all the time, is that very early on, they say, Janice, I really want your job one day. What do I have to do to get there? And so they have a path and they have a plan. Are there any other ideas? Let's start with you, Helen.
It's a double-edged sword for me, because tenacity, and I too was a single mom raising kids, and sometimes I had to suck it up, so to speak, and just endure until I could navigate to a better role. I do think actually being clear about what your ambition is, and that sometimes falls on deaf ears and sometimes doesn't. I've been overlooked for promotions, and okay, that happens. And I've navigated to organizations that have been more where I had more opportunity, frankly. So I think there is a way. It's not a up the corporate ladder. It's more of a jungle gym, navigating across and up and what have you. And sometimes you need to leave an organization or a company to be able to find a place where you're appreciated and not just tolerated, but appreciated and celebrated. Lori, you have a fabulous quote in your book about that, which I probably just botched, but it's something along those lines. Go where you're celebrated and not just tolerated.
Yeah. Right.
Because, life and work. So life is short. Work is so much a part of our, our life, that at some point you've got to ask yourself, have a heart to heart with yourself. Is this a place where I can thrive or not? And then, build a network. That is so crucial. Have folks that you can chat with, kind of a sounding board. When situations happen in my life, I'm talking to Lori Richardson all the time, because, I need that sounding board and encouragement. And so those are the things that I would do.
How about you, Janice?
Hail the Oracle, Lori Richardson. Absolutely. Not so much wisdom there. There. Han Black is echoing this as well. Wisdom, compassion. Hail Lori Richardson. So what I would say is absolutely value yourself first. Trust your instincts. Often we know that the environment isn't right for us, but we'll give them another chance. And for me, one striking you out, because I have learned that the only thing that gives is your confidence. If you're staying in an environment that undermines you, that doesn't value, then what happens? You're undermining your own confidence, which takes a long time to win back and build back. So I think you've got to fail fast, and failure is feedback. And the feedback you get from that environment, that your boss wasn't right, they undermined you, they didn't value you. The information you get from that means that in the next position you go to, you're able to use that information and interview your boss and interview your boss's boss. And there's going to be the red flags that you saw in the previous environment that are coming up in that interview that's going to tell you this is not the right environment for me. And if it's not the environment for me, there is an environment out there that is right for you. But you've just got to value yourself first and trust your instincts and really kind of like hold out for the environment that is going to value, because you're going to be able to excel and do everything, not only that your boss wants you to do, but what you want to do in the right environment. So value yourself first and trust your instincts.
Yeah. Oh, you said so many different things. I could go on and on, but I know in the interest of time, I just want to add to that, something that leaders can do, male or female, is to make sure that the sales manager, the immediate supervisor, when women come into a sales role, so critical for their success and happiness. And what many of us have gotten promoted because we did well in sales. We became a manager with no training or very little leadership training. And if I could just convey one thing, and that is to not just try to make everyone like you were. If you're a manager, you need to be open to the fact that there are many different styles, many different ways to success, and all your reps need your support. You can't just bail on them. You need to find ways to uniquely support each one. Almost like I think of sports teams and how all the players are different, but they bring their individuality and they bring their skills to shine. So if we can do anything that could make some quick results, it would be to help train and coach the first line management on how to best work with a diverse population, and that will help support your inclusive sales team. So what's one last thing? We have time for just a couple more tips. Janice, you go first.
Okay, so I'm reminded by the great saying by Madeleine Albright about a special place in hell, but I would like to just change it a little bit to there's a special place in purgatory for a woman that does not help other women. Purgatory, we can get out, we've been socialized, all of that. I'm going to give you your one strike, okay? But there is a special place in hell for men that do not support other women. We're talking about allyship, so we need to include them in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, so what I would say is, first of all, find out what each member of your team cares about, what their ambition is, whether it's promotion, more money, et cetera, many things. And then support them in realizing their personal ambition, but also support them in ways that you can uniquely do as a manager, which is, for example, remove the friction that they have in their day-to-day sales life, as an example, or use your level and your network to help open doors for them in sales or within the company from a networking point of view.
Fantastic. And Janice, how can people find you?
LinkedIn, Janice, don't forget my B, Janice B. Gordon.
Janice B. Gordon, and you're all over the internet. But start with LinkedIn and go from there. Fantastic. And Helen?
LinkedIn, Helen Finucci, Pipeline Power. Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. And I am Lori Richardson. I can be found through LinkedIn and a number of other places on the interwebs. And this is so great. I mean, we have so many more things we could talk about. I hope we can do this again soon because it's very important and people need tips and ideas. I'd also say go to LinkedIn and read about what other women are doing and read about the sales role and share your own story because it's so important. Thank you both so much. Helen Fanucci, author of Love Your Team and founder of PipelinePower.ai. Janice B. Gordon, customer growth expert, founder of Scale Your Sales. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Lori.